Welcome, everybody, to the holiday shortened week for Talkback. And Talkback is brought to you by the Mustard Seed Asian Cafe in Southgate Mall, Kootenai Creek Village, the maintenance-free active adult community in Stevensville, Dig It Excavating, bringing 30 years of excellence to every job. Call 214-4292. Transport Equipment, your headquarters for RV service maintenance and repair, located next to the Axemen. Bulls Eyewear, where they offer some of the lowest prices in town on contact lenses. See Lynette at 2910 South Reserve. And Nissan Hyundai of Missoula, celebrating their grand opening sale, offering top dollar for your trade and 0% financing up to 72 months. Well, good morning, John King. You're looking very relaxed.
I am relaxed. I had a relaxing weekend. How about you?
I did as well, even though I did a lot of work.
Did you?
If you look on my Facebook page, you will see a photograph of a gnarly-looking cactus. And I'm telling you, I've been to the desert. I know what a cactus looks like, okay? And see, we have this great big bull pine outside my back fence. Uh-huh. And underneath it is the detritus, whatever you call it.
Detritus?
Whatever, of like a million pine cones, right? They fell and nobody ever cleaned them up, so there they sat. Well, we were out there, digging up some weeds and stuff, and happened to see poking up on top of those pine cones, this really gnarly looking, would look like a desert cactus. And so as we brushed the pine cones aside, we saw that this cactus had been spreading. There was like 5 feet of this cactus. And so my wife and I, we put on several pairs of gloves because it was just going right through our regular gloves. And so we dug it up, dug it out, and
Wait,
what
are you doing? This might be your plants are defending themselves from the deer. They finally have found a way to fight back against the deer that eat all the flowers, right?
Well,
this might be your saving grace.
No. Well, here's the deal. We have some neighbor kids that use the area behind our house to come back from. It's a kind of a shortcut to get from the school bus stop to their house. And I don't want them walking down that and stepping on this cactus and hurting themselves. I mean, that would be terrible.
That would be.
So as we were digging this stuff up, I took a couple of photos and I went, man, this is nasty stuff. And I don't remember ever seeing that kind of cactus in Missoula. And I wanted to find out if anybody else had experienced the same thing.
Yeah, I've never seen cactus in Missoula. I've seen it in eastern Montana.
Yeah. But I'm thinking what probably may have happened, the tree where this all happened at is like a bird condo. Okay, I mean, there's like, I don't know how many different species of birds, magpies and crows and whatever. There's a whole bunch of them. A lot of songbirds live in there. And I'm wondering if maybe they didn't pick up some seeds from a different place and in
the avian detritus.
Yeah, the bird
spread out. By the way, I looked that word up. It is detritus.
Yeah, detritus. Thank you. But anyway, so it might have simply dropped in and started growing and found a wonderful environment underneath this big, layer of pine cones.
You didn't realize there was cactus potential for that area.
I did not. So anyway, if anybody wants to see what these cacti, I don't know if this is a particular kind of cactus or what, but it was nasty. Man, I'm telling you what, I have never worn 3 pairs of gloves to pick any sort of weed before, but this was bad.
Well, speaking of nasty,
okay,
the California primaries coming up here.
Okay.
Despite pretty much, as far as I know, no chance of Sanders winning, they're still going at it hammer and tongs.
Okay.
And Bernie Sanders retweeted a song by a band, which I've never heard of, but cleverly named the 99%.
Uh-huh.
And the title of this song is Superdelegates. Right. It seems like a kind of last-ditch effort maybe to sway people's opinion away from Hillary. Anyway, I think I have the song in queue if you want to.
Yes, we do. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the 99% with Superdelegate Song. I like it already.
Sounds like Schoolhouse Rock to me.
It does, yeah.
Now is the time to see the truth, to see the world the way it moves.
Oh, yeah.
Is this person gonna listen to me? Have they taken it away from me? Yeah. They hide behind the money flow.
Oh, yeah.
That's just the way it goes. Will this world just wither and die, or will we find super delicate. Now is the time, it's happening now. There's nothing wrong with going with the flow, but I'm tired of waiting around to see if corruption is deep in the ground. And I don't know why I'm here, or why we all have to live in fear. There's a way to get around this mess. I hope you don't forget. Change your mind, super delicate. You have to find just where we're at. You're a fool. You can't be bought by who you represent. Change your mind. Super delegate. You're a fool. Ooh, super delegate. Change your mind. Super delegate. You're a fool. You can't be bought by who you represent. Change your mind.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Now that particular song was for the, I guess it's in general, but it's especially because the California primary is on June 7th, the same day as the all-important Montana primary.
Groovy.
Of course, everyone's invested millions of dollars in. Not
okay.
really, but
Yeah.
there is a little bit of a current of concern from Sanders supporters in the fact that there is a bunch of money channeled through Montana to Hillary Clinton, but not to Bernie Sanders.
And that's right.
So that whole line about you can't be paid by who you represent. Change your mind.
Well, if you remember, over the weekend, Bernie Sanders was actually one of his rallies interrupted by animal rights activists.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that? So, so no one is immune from these protesters. So we're going to come right back. Marcus, I want to give you plenty of time to make your comments. So if you can hang on, I'll get you right on after the break.
He has some cacti information.
Oh, wonderful. I can't wait. So if anybody wants this cacti, it's in a huge, very heavy bag, and you're certainly welcome to it. So.
The bag says free hugs on it.
Yeah. Squeeze me. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback, 721-1290. That's our number. A little bit of open phones action going on until 9 o'clock this morning. Then we have the folks from the University of Montana Department of Philosophy coming in to talk about a very unusual topic.
I told them it was a platform for free speech of all kinds, and we'll be discussing some of the more edgier
well, let's just
content.
say it might even be a very expensive form of speech.
It'll be very revealing.
Yes, there you go. Marcus, thank you for holding, sir. You're on Talkback.
Yeah, does this cactus have little segments about the size of your big toe that break off?
Yes, sir.
Yep, that would be called fragilis. It's like Opuntia fragilis or something like that, but it's basically related to prickly pear, but we have it out here in western Montana in low elevation areas, typically dry sites, often under pine trees.
Yeah, there you go. I was totally shocked when I saw this because I used to live in Helena, and there's an actual, there's a creek called Prickly Pear Creek, So
I like how you whipped the Latin out on us. That was pretty impressive, Marcus.
Prickly pear will have these big Well, the reason I know is because I have it at my house in Stevensville.
Okay.
And I didn't know what it was because I had seen prickly pear in eastern Montana, and this looked kind of similar, but a little bit different. And so it's called miniature prickly pear or fragile prickly pear, but I just call it fragilis, but that's the Latin name is fragilis. But anyway, it basically just means fragile, and it seems to spread by breaking off, sticking to your shoes or anything, and then breaking off and traveling on you for a while.
Well, the photo I have, these spines, they're like 1.5 inches, 2 inches long. They're huge, and they are sharp, and they hurt. I mean,
they wake you up.
Yeah, no kidding. It's totally gross, and we had to get rid of them because, like, say, the kids walk down that area, and I don't want somebody stepping on one.
Well, I never knew that. I just didn't understand cactus enough since I really only see them in old Roadrunner cartoons. I always just figured it was to keep things from getting at the liquid inside. But now apparently they use their spines for transport to stick to other things. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, thanks again, you guys, for doing a great job. We'll talk to you soon.
Marcus, appreciate the information. Brenda, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Hi, I just wanted to tell you that I grew up on the Lower Miller Creek Road, and the property my folks eventually owned was now called Lamoureux Lane, but my folks owned that 10 acres, and we would walk across the field over toward the Upper Miller Creek Road, and there were all kinds of cactus there. It was a kind of a flat thing against the ground, and it had a yellow flower on it, but my brother and I dug up a bunch of those and took them home and had a cactus bed in our yard for a long time. My mother wasn't too pleased, but she let us do it.
Well, let me just say, these suckers have long roots. And I was trying to dig them up by the root, and I just kept digging and digging. Luckily, the place where I live used to be a sand and gravel pit, so the ground is very soft and pliable. So it's not like digging in clay. So we dig and dig and just keep pulling on these roots because I wanted to get the whole thing, And like I said, it had spread out for maybe 20 feet or so in either direction where we found the original plant. As we kept brushing aside the old pine cones, there's more cactus underneath.
Hey, Brenda, since you've been in Missoula for a long time, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So I took my kids up the L Trail the other day, and we were hiking, and I couldn't get my 5-year-old to stop running off the trail. So I told him that they call this area the rattlesnake because there's rattlesnakes all over the place off the side of the trail, which made me think, why do they call it the rattlesnake? Because I've never even heard, I've been up there quite a bit. I've never seen a rattlesnake myself up there. Were there lots of rattlesnakes, or is it just the shape of the river, or what?
I don't remember anything except bull snakes, and they would get in the basement and wind themselves around the little wires that were sticking out of the wall of the basement because there weren't doors and windows in it originally when my dad built the house. But I saw bull snakes and water snakes, but I never saw a rattlesnake in this area at all.
That's something. Maybe one of our wonderful, eminent Missoula historians can let us know why. Interesting how places are named.
Now, Peter, did you are you on the Upper Miller Creek Road? You mentioned a gravel pit, and there's a big one up there.
Well, yeah, but ours is a former gravel pit that's down a little bit from the present gravel pit area.
It's actually an ancient burial ground.
Like in the St. Thomas?
Yeah, exactly. It's on
if you wonder why Peter's hair is white, it's because he looks at ghosts all night long.
That's right.
Well, we would have been neighbors then when I was kids, and we had the only house on that 10 acres on Lamoureux Lane.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Thanks
Well, Brenda,
a lot.
thanks for the call.
You
Appreciate
bet.
it. Yeah. So I guess it's not quite as unusual as I thought.
I'm guessing now that rattlesnake thing must be because of some clever parent from eons past.
Well, maybe there's some historians out there that can, because one of the more interesting discussions that we had on a former talk show that I had called The Breakfast Club, and we kept this going for days, okay? Missoula is known as the hub of 5 valleys.
Mm-hmm.
What are the 5 valleys? And when all was said and done, we came up with like 26 valleys.
26?
Yes, it was like, well, it was this and this and this, and don't forget this, and what about this, and this down, come down here, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It was amazing, and so that was a great discussion. So let's get back to the phones. Doug, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Well, in 1946, my parents decided to move to Missoula, and I was in the 2nd grade, and they were disturbed about moving into the Rattlesnake Valley because they didn't want me to get bit.
Right.
And so they asked a lot of people, and they were usually told, well, if there's no rattlesnakes in the Rattlesnake Valley, they just named it because that's the sound that you hear when you stand near the creek. And it's flowing over the rocks.
Interesting. Very interesting. I wonder.
So we moved up here 70 years ago and haven't seen a rattlesnake.
Wow, so that I guess that's as good as an explanation as any.
Well, it's better than lying to your 5-year-old.
As long as you're lying to keep them safe, John.
Well,
it's okay.
I didn't know that I was lying at the time. It could have been true. It was my best idea why they called it the rattlesnake.
This is true.
There have been rattlesnakes in the Rattlesnake, and that's after a Missoulian reporter made this question about why is it called Rattlesnake Valley, and so he lived at the intersection of Duncan Drive and Lolo Street.
Right.
And there was a fellow who owned property up in the Sapphires, and he was out with his horse checking out his property, and it was a nice warm day, and the rattlesnakes were out on this rock outcropping, and so he went and got a box and put some rattlesnakes in it, some small ones.
Okay.
And he hauled them up to Steve Smith's house and dumped them in a well window. And the next day, Steve Smith was walking around his yard and looked in the well window, and here were several baby rattlers.
Holy
so,
smoke.
So he immediately wrote a nice story about there are rattlesnakes that I found about my property.
Wow.
And so I was doing an art fair at the university, and I was doing pottery. And some fellow came by and wanted to know about pottery, and we got to talking about where I live up the rattlesnake. And he said, I pulled this wonderful trick on Steve Smith.
Oh, no.
He said, I went up there, but he says, don't tell him, because he'll probably kill me. So I kept it a secret from Steve Smith until about 5 years ago, and this story probably appeared in Missoula about 35 years ago.
All right.
And everyone's forgotten about it. But
Doug, thanks for the call. Appreciate it, sir. All right, we're going to come right back, and we have Marcus back. We're going to get you on in a moment. A couple lines open. It's open phones. We're just throwing stuff around. We'll be right back. We've got about 2 minutes. Well, we have to take our break here and then prepare for an interesting discussion on Talkback. But right now, Marcus is back. Hey, Marcus.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to add that the only rattlesnakes I've ever seen in Missoula or Valley County were right at the toe of Mount Jumbo.
Really?
There's kind of a flatter area there with some rocks, and I saw a rattlesnake there probably 15 years ago. Only that one, so they're out there, but they're not very common.
Hey, I got a question. Well, and maybe that was brought in by someone trying to irk a Missoulian reporter. Who knows?
Possibly.
You were the cactus expert, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yes, I have the degree.
I've been poked by that cactus. I'm an expert at it.
Can you eat those?
Oh, yeah, they're great. Fry them up with your eggs. No, I have no idea.
Because you can eat prickly pear, right?
I've heard that they maybe are edible. I don't know. I've never tried to eat.
You got to be pretty doggone desperate to.
Okay, give me the Latin. It's desperate to eat something that you found outside. Come on, that's not a Montana way to talk. All right, what's the name of this?
It is
thing?
when you can use it as a toothpick when you're done.
Double feature.
Go ahead.
What's the Latin for that thing again? I'm going to look it up.
Oh, it was Puntia fragilis. Just look up fragilis cactus. You'll get it.
All right, thanks.
Fragilis. All right.
All right.
Thank you
Have a good
much.
one.
Thank you very much.
Opuntia fragilis.
Okay, well, we need Rob Nadelson. He's our Latin expert in here. So.
I bet he'd eat a prickly pear.
Well, it's kind of like it's one of those things where how did people finally figure out how to eat an artichoke? You know what I mean? It's almost impossible unless you. There wasn't an instruction book laying around with the first artichoke many years ago.
Yeah, and that one needs one.
Yeah, I know. It's like, you want to eat this? Are we starving? Yes. Okay, we're going to try to figure out a way to eat this. Anyway, so we're going to take a break. When we come back at the top of the hour, we're going to shift gears or use the clutch. Talking with folks at the University of Montana Department of Philosophy. And we'll talk about a subject that is, let's just say, it's very old.
The oldest type of
exactly.
work you can get in America.
We'll be back.
Or anywhere.
Welcome. Hour number 2 is underway of Talkback, which is brought to you by Selway Armory on Stockyard Road. More guns and ammo than anyone in Missoula. The best prices in Montana. Montana's premier firearms dealer. AAA. Your AAA card pays for itself with discounts on big brands. Join now. Get a free canvas tote. Visit AAA.com/Montana. Western Montana, New Holland, south of the Y on Highway 10, across from the Axemen. And now offering special financing, 0 down up to 84 months. And Spray Green Lawn provides lawn aeration services, fertilization, and more. Get 15% off your first spray if you mention this message. Call 207-9273. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, okay, we have this program will travel boldly where angels fear to tread. Quite literally. Anyway, but John King is over there. I'm Peter Christian. Swaziglam-Lebian is with us, the Associate Professor of Philosophy at the University of Montana, and Beth Hubble, Director of the University of Montana Women's Gender and Sexuality Program. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
To both of you. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So I can't see you over there. There you go. Okay. Today we are going to talk about prostitution, I guess, right?
And pornography.
And pornography.
Kind of sex work in general.
Okay.
Yep.
So it has been known as the world's oldest profession, right? Prostitution. So where do you want to begin, ladies? This is your discussion. So I'm just the dopey host. So where should we?
Maybe
begin?
we should begin with this with a story from Peter, because
No,
you've had some prostitution
Yeah,
experience, as you explained before the show.
It's okay.
It's pretty cool, actually. I just to give everyone a basis of their humble host's background.
Okay.
Because otherwise they're going to assume stuff from this.
Okay. Years ago, I used to be. You guys are going to laugh. I used to be the television host for the Jerry Lewis Telethon back in the early '80s, I guess. Anyway, when they still had black and white. But anyway, and what they would do every year is they would send the television hosts from every city to Las Vegas to meet Jerry Lewis, get your pictures taken, get all the waving and get all pumped up and all how wonderful it is and all that, for the muscular dystrophy program. Anyway, it was Las Vegas, and I was by myself, and I was going from one hotel to another trying to find a cheap buffet, which is what people with no money do. So I'm walking in this, I guess you'd call it a breezeway, and there was an African-American woman standing there, and as I was headed toward the door, and she goes, "Are you by yourself? Would you like some company?" And I looked at her, and I said, "No, thank you." And I ran. I ran to the door, and I burst through and ran. And I swear I could hear her laughing as I was going. So the sophisticate right here, ladies and gentlemen, the one man in all of Missoula who can really talk about this stuff. Like that's me. I know nothing about this. But anyway, so
just in case you're wondering, his face is totally red right now. He looks like he face smashed up against a prickly pear a little bit.
All right. Anyway, so where do you want to start this conversation, ladies?
Well, I was thinking that we could start by kind of looking at what the debate is within the circles that I run in.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. We always like to start with definitions. Okay. So let's talk about a definition. Now, we just recently had a very important seminar on the University of Montana campus about human trafficking.
Yes.
Okay. And so let's differentiate between human trafficking and prostitution, if that's even possible. And then, of course, there's pornography, which is like a huge multi-billion-dollar business all over the world. So both these things kind of tie in with each other, right?
They absolutely do. And so in my work, in the kind of the position that where I come from, I see trafficking, prostitution, and pornography as being part of the same larger issue about the status and treatment of women in our society. And in terms of defining them, especially when you're talking about pornography, one of my favorite quotes when I talk about this with my students is from, I think it's a 1964 U.S. Supreme Court case, and in one of the decisions about it, you know what I'm talking about. It was Justice Potter Stewart said about pornography, "I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it."
Right.
And so that the definitions of it is one of the problems in terms of how do we talk about it, how do we talk about whether we should regulate it, ban it, those kind of things. What are we actually talking about? There
are free speech issues
Absolutely.
here. There are all sorts of issues that go on here.
Yep.
As opposed to public health and on and on we go. So which direction do you want to go here? Which topic or is it possible to separate them?
Well, I think it is. Well, I think it's possible to look at two different sides, and you've brought up one of them.
I certainly did.
Yeah.
Got the awkward side covered.
Thank you very much. Anyway, okay, so I'm sorry.
So people are sometimes, because of what I teach, and you heard my big long program title at people make assumptions about me often, one of which is that I'm a feminist, which I am. And then once they know that, they think they know how I feel about all of these different issues and think that feminists think this, and this. Well, sex work.
So we've got you figured out.
You have, except for maybe about this issue.
Okay.
Because this is one of those places that people that work on women's rights are really split internationally, nationally.
I've always wondered about that because when you talk about feminism and being strong and independent, making your own decisions about your own health and issues, and then with pornography and prostitution, you're thinking, isn't that the ultimate victimization?
Absolutely.
So.
And so that is, you've identified exactly the tension that wanting to be against censorship, wanting to make my own decisions and things like that. If I am a feminist and believe that a woman can make her own choices, and then I look at prostitution and pornography and go, is that choice being made freely? Has that person truly chosen to do that? And what are the parameters in our society that
if you want to take a step further, whether they make the decision willingly or not, you get into the right and wrong issue. And is there a way to objectify? Whether you make the decision freely or not? Is it right or wrong?
And I mean exactly in terms of legality, and that was one of in the 1970s and 80s. Kind of one of the arguments is around issues of obscenity, morality, and can you legislate those things? How does that work?
Tell you what, we're up against a break. Now, this is a fascinating discussion, and we have 4, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 phone lines, and we would love all of you guys to get involved. 721-1290 is our number. I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
I just said just guys, apparently.
Yeah.
Because you can make your confessions public.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Call. We'll be right back. Bum, 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 bum. Okay. We're back on Talkback. Joining us this morning, Beth Humble and Swazig Bihan, Associate Professor of Philosophy at the University of Montana. Beth is Director of UM Women's Gender and Sexuality Program, and we're talking prostitution, pornography, a whole range of issues here, right?
Yes.
Right, but we do have calls.
Just real quick, because you had this big pent-up energy behind what you were saying, and I really want to know where you stand, because you say a lot of people will misinterpret where I stand, and they might assume one thing or the other. And when it comes to feminism, it's my understanding that people that think of feminism from the 60s and 70s and maybe early 80s, they think of a kind of feminism that would say prostitution bad. And if people in my generation think of feminism, they would assume the feminists would say prostitution okay, let the woman do what she wants to do. And so my question is, where do you stand?
Well, I tend to stand more on the questioning of it, on the prostitution, pornography made within a larger system that is inherently problematic. So, but I also, in terms of those dates that you just gave, I fall in the 1990s where I'm torn both ways. And so a lot of my students that I teach definitely fall into kind of the sex positivity, it's a choice and things like that area. And so I do spend a lot of my time with them kind of playing the devil's advocate, going, but what about this? What about this? And so I'm very comfortable arguing.
In this case, the devil is arguing against prostitution, so don't be too confused.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a bold statement to make there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get to the phones before we get where angels really do fear to tread. Mike, you're on Talkback. Thanks for holding, sir. Please go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. Back in the mid-'80s, I was stationed in Germany, and they have the red light districts there that with 4 buddies on a weekend pass in Frankfurt. We went as tourists. We didn't partake in any of the stuff, but the roads between the main streets, I was surprised how industrialized it was.
So basically, you're a sociological observance.
Yes.
Observers. Okay.
I was just a tourist. I bet no one comes from there and says that.
Go ahead, Mike.
For an 18-year-old, your eyes are bugging out, and you sober up. All those beers you had before, all of a sudden, didn't matter. But anyway, the streets were blocked off, and the signs that indicated the red light district said no dogs and no women. And it's like, that doesn't bode well for equality or anything. But when we went there, you got a whole range of young ladies doing homework while they're waiting for a client. It was bizarre. It was kind of, and well, at the time we were all excited, and boy, you don't see anything like this in America, and this is exciting and crazy. But afterwards, it was kind of they were so nonchalant about it that it almost sex lost a kind of a special meaning. It lost its specialness. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if some societies don't go so far to where they forbid women to even go out in public. They're so covered up, and that it goes to the opposite extreme, that it's not only nonchalant, it's the opposite of nonchalant, where men just go crazy when they come to a Western society and grope and fondle, and they see women as objects as opposed to it's just sex. It's no big deal. I'm just wondering that.
Well, Mike, you've given us a lot to talk about. Thanks for the call.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so any reaction to what Mike had to say? Swazi?
Sure, I can go.
Okay.
I mean, that's a nice experience that you had. I had a very similar experience when I went to the Netherlands, and I went to the Red District in Amsterdam.
There's also a blue district in Amsterdam for men or people who wanted little boys.
Oh.
Sorry, I read about it. So go ahead.
That's another issue,
yeah,
obviously.
Exactly. Yeah.
So on the debate we talked, just to make things clear, on the debate we talked about before, I'm more, I understand perfectly. I mean, I'm torn as well, and I'm a feminist, and I'm torn. But I lean towards the positivity, women's right to do whatever they want with their body, et cetera, et cetera. And my after I visited Amsterdam, just like you did, and I saw those women in windows, right? Then I did my homework myself, and I looked into what their lives was and what kind of protection they have, and the fact that they were unionized, and the fact that they had benefit and retirement. And if they get raped, they can actually file a suit. They can have people in trial because they got raped. If they if their money gets stolen, same thing. All of they're doing is work. So if you steal their work, which is sex,
so they are sex workers.
They're sex workers, and so they have a kind of protection that none of the non-legal prostitutes have. And to me, that was really a kind of epiphany. That sounds too much, but it was. Before that, I never thought that I would be agreeing with prostitution, legalized prostitution. But at that point, at the same time in France, what they did is that they wanted to clean up Paris, right? So they wanted to put all the prostitutes out of Paris. But I was living in the suburbs. I could not afford to live in Paris. And so I saw all those prostitutes come in the big woods that were next to my apartment. And they were isolated, cold, drugged up with all kinds of drugs. I didn't feel that they were safer, better off being in the woods, in trailer cars or whatever they were, rather than in those windows when they can, pull up the curtain and, as you said, do their homework, which means just like a lot of strippers pay for college and have actually a very good wage.
Okay, we're going to come right back. And Catherine, we're going to get you a call. I want to give you plenty of time. I know you have plenty of comments to make. We have 3 lines open. Very sensitive subject. You may feel uncomfortable talking about it, but here we are. So 721, if you want to use a different name. No, I'm just kidding. 721-1290 is our number. We'll be right back. Oh, we're back. 721-1290 is our number. Beth Hubble joining us this morning, Director of U of M Women's Gender and Sexuality Program. Swazig Labian, Associate Professor of Philosophy at the University of Montana. And let's go ahead and get Catherine on the line. Hi, Catherine.
Good morning, Peter. Okay, I wanted to ask this, kind of using an overarching concept of self-ownership. As far as prostitution goes, if it were legalized, would it or would it not reduce the type and number of people trafficked or sex trafficked against their will? And there's an attendance aspect that I wish for them to address, and that is child labor laws and ages of emancipation. And with the way that they are done in this country, don't these push people into the gray and black areas with regard to earning their own living or owning their own labor? Because we have hard and fast rules as far as child labor goes, and as far as age of emancipation goes, it does not take into account ability or skills that people may or may not have in order to run their own lives.
Okay, so giving us a lot to think about there. Catherine, thanks. Thanks for the call.
Okay.
So, where do you go?
By the way, to make this a little current, there's a strip club. It's not in Montana. I think it's in Washington, but they're in a lot of trouble because they put on their billboard for graduation week, now hiring the class of 2016.
Okay.
Oh.
So just so you know,
that puts it in a little.
Yeah, it gives you some perspective. That line there,
and especially I graduated from high school when I was 17, so that would have been a yeah.
I'm sure he meant the college class of 2016. Yeah, I'm sure that's probably what he meant.
Well,
Okay.
and that in terms of that line, in terms of like child pornography, child prostitution. I mean, that's inviolable.
It
is,
right,
yes. Right. But then you get all of these pornography sites that say barely legal and things like that I think are also, that makes it really hard to make those hard and fast. Well, she is 18, but she's being promoted as someone who's younger. And so how does that function? I mean, in terms of the question that Catherine just asked, thinking about legal self-ownership,
right?
and that idea of choice, I think is really important. And I've definitely read research done into women who are strippers, women who are sex workers, things like that they can feel a lot of empowerment by doing it, things like that it is a way, especially dancing, that you can work at night, go to school during the day, things like that. That's a very common narrative there. At the same time, when you look at the life stories of a large number of women who are in these professions, they often feature drug use, child abuse. When they were children, they were abused, things like that. And so that's where I get a little tied up in the question of yes, I've chosen to do this. Yes, this is a way that I'm reclaiming my body, and I think that can be empowering. But at the same time, what are the larger social structures that are preventing you from really owning that? Because you are putting yourself out there to be objectified, but you're choosing to do it. That's why it's such a gray.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
So you've obviously thought a lot about this. I would assume as a professor that in the field that this is something you specialize in. So I guess I want to throw out some options for you and kind of tell me where you line up in the real world as far as options. So do you think it should be, I guess there's kind of three categories that I can think of. Legal to sell, but not legal to purchase.
Like in Sweden.
Should it be legal to sell and purchase, or not legal to sell and purchase? I guess those are the three most common, scenarios out there in the world.
Are you talking about prostitution?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
When I
So
say buy and sell, I'm talking about selling your body for sex.
Gotcha.
That's actually hard for me to answer. I don't. So Sweden has had a model where prostitution is legal. It's legal for the women, but then the illegality is on the Johns. And I tend to
Hold.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on. So okay. So it's legal for the woman, and then she is protected in a certain way through that legality. But anyone who comes to her looking for her services can be prosecuted.
Yes.
That seems tremendously unfair.
It does. And I think in part it is an attempt, and I think a flawed one, to address one of the issues that we face in the United States and that you see that what happened in Paris and what's happened at different points throughout history is that the people that are punished are the prostitutes. They're the ones that are arrested, as opposed to the men or women or whoever who is purchasing their services. And so that, I think, is what that's trying to address. And so to my mind, it's always been, you can't just, let's get all the prostitutes out. There's, in the...
It's not happening.
it's not gonna. Yeah, it's not gonna. The world's oldest profession.
Yeah, I mean, the prostitutes are not disappearing. As you said, it's the oldest job in the world, and
Yes.
because it's not happening. They're going to be out there, and I would say make it legal, let them, and let's focus on the ones who are not consenting.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, let me ask a follow-up question on that, because there's this idea out there that if you make it legal, that it will get rid of the criminal behavior or lessen it, right? And I don't live in a society where it's legal, but I know that people are always looking for the cheapest deal, and they're always looking for a bigger thrill when it comes to this sort of activity. And I just don't see a way that you get rid of this dark market in this field, especially when people can find people that are involved in drugs or want a lower price, or are always going to have an avenue for finding that. And I just don't see it being able to get rid of it.
Sure, you're not going to get rid of the dark side. It's out there, and it will be there, and people will have the thrill with children, with very young girls, whatever they do. I don't want to know. My point is that if you make it legal for the consenting adult, then the resources that are always scarce, right? You always have to decide what you prosecute, right? Then the resources can be focused on the worst cases, which are sex slaves, right? And we know we have sex slavery in Montana, as we said earlier. We have 12-year-old girls who are taken out of reservation by white guys and turned into sex slaves. We have to address that issue before we prosecute the consenting adult, which who might be fooling herself, but tons of people are fooling themselves. Attorneys are fooling themselves. Doctors.
Not only do we have to find a way to find who's doing this and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, but we also have to be able to find a way to, forgive the term, redeem these kids.
Right.
There's no way to restore a lost childhood like that, but at least to find some comfort and treatment and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
To, you know what I mean? To help them trust people. Go ahead.
I was just going to push it a little bit further, because there is, I think, an argument to be made that perhaps having the shield of legality will protect. For example, when people go on the internet and they're looking at pornography or something, and they go down, well, they assume it has to be legal, right? What I'm looking at has to be legal because it's available. No one's getting people in trouble. There's even television stations that put this stuff up, so it's got to be legal. And eventually, as we all know, you can get into illegal content. And that's same sort of, and it basically houses it, and it almost indirectly kind of promotes it. And I guess that could happen with prostitution, it seems to me.
We're up against a break. So we'll be right back. Catherine is back. We also have 3 lines open, 721-1290. And this is a difficult topic to discuss. And I don't think there's probably been a radio show that's talked about this ever. But I'm glad we're doing it. Okay, we're coming right back. Stay with us. Okay, we are back. 721-1290 is our number. Okay, Catherine's back. I know you've been waiting. You got another question or comment? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a follow-up, I guess, regarding child labor laws. And what they do is they restrict the ability of younger age people to find work outside of the shady areas. They push kids into the gangs and pimps and sex traffickers because they don't have a whole lot of other options. As an example, I was coming up with ideas here. A 14-year-old runaway from a bad home or foster situation, she has very few options because she doesn't own her own labor. So she's peculiarly vulnerable to being sex trafficked.
Well, it's illegal for anyone like at a McDonald's or a Taco Bell to hire her, right? It's just too young, right?
So that's all I wanted to add to that.
Okay.
So thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, so, ladies?
Yeah, absolutely. I that wasn't where my mind had gone with it. I was thinking in terms of that, 17, 18-year-old, but thinking about it, I mean, absolutely homeless youth and homeless girls and homeless boys are often forced into prostitution just to get some money, things like that. That's absolutely. And the social service net, where is that?
Right, and we're not talking anywhere near the age of consent or any of that stuff yet. We're talking complete illegality here.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And so our discussion is veered more towards mainstream pornography that's being produced for a profit. people within prostitution who could be said to be consenting adults, or at least of the age to do it, because that's where once you're into the anything that's child prostitution, trafficking, child pornography, no, it's all done. That's
Yeah. So I think it is so easy to throw everything in one big bag and say, this bad, we don't talk about it. And yet it's going on all around you. It's victimizing people right and left. It's destroying lives in many ways. And is it destroying lives because A, it's been shoved in the background for so long, or is it destroying lives because it's inherently bad and evil?
Well, I don't think that yeah, or both. Okay. See, I'm a shades of gray kind of person.
Okay, all right.
Not the 50 kind.
I was gonna
not the 50. I've said that for so many years.
100.
And it comes back to haunt me every time it comes out of my mouth.
Okay,
now I go,
right.
oh no.
Okay, yeah.
But for me, I think that the issue, my problem with things like prostitution, pornography, sex work in general, is not necessarily the sexual act, the sexual content of those things. It's the ways in which those industries dehumanize, objectify women and men and children. I mean, in terms of who's in there, and so turning the body, someone's autonomous body. What you can say, well, I agreed to be in this film and I had fun making it, but you can't control the way it's used once it's out there in the public.
You sound kind of like a Platonist, like you don't like the body and you like
no.
the will and you like this freedom of intention and all this stuff, but you don't like the physical, nasty, dirty stuff.
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying.
Because
okay.
So what is it about objectifying that? What makes you more of an object because you engage in sex?
Well, it's not that I'm more of an object because I engage in sex. It's that the using of my body by someone else who only sees me as an object. I can make a decision to be fully empowered, but I can't necessarily control how my body is viewed.
And especially when you are viewed simply as a profit motive.
As a profit, exactly.
Right.
And at a distance, if it's online, however that works.
Yeah, and again, it's all about, it's just my opinion, it's all about dehumanization. It just boggles my mind what people will do to each other,
And the dehumanization part is part of what we look about when we look at the continuum of violence. Is once you dehumanize someone, it becomes much easier to perpetrate violence against them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And so for me, just looking at that larger message that's being sent.
Go ahead, Swazik, yeah.
Yeah, I want to just jump in here because I'm very sensitive, obviously, to that message. I do believe that the vast majority of pornography, we're talking more about pornography right now, is dehumanizing and demeaning to women, especially, but also to men to some extent, but largely to women. Women are portrayed as an object of pleasure for men. Basically. And that's the wrong message to send to the society, to people learning about sex, young boys learning about sex. I don't know, when is the first time you see pornography? Young boy, maybe 10, 11, 12, something like this. I don't know. With the internet, my days are long gone. But my point here is that it seems to me, yes, it sends the wrong message, but I also think that there is that message is sent in the society way earlier to kids. Kids have biases about gender roles very early, between 5 and 7.
And they're being sexualized a lot earlier.
They're being sexualized a lot earlier, and so I think it is. Yeah, there was a sexy bikinis for babies recently with girls posing with a lollipop in her mouth. Wow. That was just gross. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going on the side here.
We're up against a break, and John, you had a comment real quick.
Real quick, totally unrelated. Just to give you a heads up, if you see an orange tabby cat near Reserve in Wheat, Montana, Serena would like it back. Give her a call at 212-1694. Again, that's Serena. She lost her orange tabby cat. She's afraid someone stole it. 212-1694.
Well, that's sad. Okay, we're going to come right back. Stay with us, 721-1290. Harry, I promise we'll get your call on as soon as we get back. And
stay looking
with us.
for a kitty.
This is Talkback, and we're rolling right along. Beth Hubble joining us, Director of U of M Women's Gender and Sexuality Program, Swazik Lorbian, the Associate Professor of Philosophy. We're talking about having a conversation, not really a debate, about prostitution and pornography. So go ahead, John.
It's hard to have a debate when someone won't tell us their real opinion. Elena has a question for you. All right, so this question is, as a feminist, where do you stand on Islam? How Muslim men treat and demand their women to act and expect non-Muslim women to act?
Well, I think that just like with any religion, it's a complicated question, and Islam is not a monolith, and women within Islam, depending on the sect and the country and the area, can have freedom of expression, things like that. And so for me, I've actually done a lot of reading about women and gender in Islam and done a lot of reading by Muslim feminists and things like that.
Boy, does that feel like an oxymoron?
It actually doesn't to me at
It doesn't.
all.
Okay. Okay.
Because what they're looking at from within their own culture is what does gender inequality look like within our culture? Because I think that it's hard for me from the West to go in and go, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. You can't wear that. Because then it's kind of the same thing as saying, hey, you can't be a stripper, which is why I can't make a decision on that one either.
I'm from the West. I can't decide.
Exactly.
Are you undecided? Well, yes and no.
And so for me, there's a lot of really interesting work done by women within the Muslim world looking at those issues. And one of my favorite quotes that I pull out when students ask me that exact same question, which I get asked a lot, is by a woman who died last year, Fatima Mernissi, and she writes about how within her communities, they look at women in the West and the things that we wear and the way that we dress and go, oh my God, how can they so objectify themselves? And so that it works both ways. We look at them and go, oh my God, they're so oppressed, and they look at us and see the same thing.
But here's a crucial difference, and I think you just said it. Here's how they objectify themselves. And that seems to be a pretty big distinction. In most of these, I'm sorry, and I get that there are areas of like Sufism and a few others where there's a little bit more liberation and there's a distance between the state being run by the religious system. But in most of it, I mean, it's not that way.
There was recently a law passed in one of these countries where it's okay to beat your wife a little bit. What? So anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, that there are abuses is obvious. All religions have some radicals in them, and those radicals do bad things.
Okay.
And that's about it.
There's even atheist radicals. I mean, it's a human problem.
Tell you what.
Absolutely.
Tell you what. Let's. I promised Harry we'd get him on right away. Harry, thank you for holding, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning. The objectification of people. I mean, that goes beyond just prostitution and pornography. I mean, almost every business objectifies you in one sense or another. I mean, you are worth so many hours a week. I mean, you're not a person. You're or especially you get the bigger corporation or
you're a commodity.
You're a commodity. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know where it's so disgraceful for a woman to get up and strip on a stage and get lots of money, or as opposed to cleaning a toilet for minimum wage every day. I mean, that's which is more disgraceful or degrading. I don't. I would think it'd be up to the woman if she's proud of her body or whatever. That's up to her. The idea that's the freedom of choice. Of course, then you get into the mentality. Well, were they abused as a child? And but how do you determine that? So just the ownership of your body, and also the wearing the clothes for religious. I mean, we say the Muslims. Well, look, I know a lot of Hutterites. They don't let their women wear short dresses. I mean, so is that worse than wearing a hijab? Or but just a few thoughts.
Okay, Harry. Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate the call. Now, let me ask you, both of you, this. Where does government exist in all of this? Because the one thing that we keep hearing is that from women and from women's groups is, I want the government to stay out of my decisions about my body, okay? But at what point do you want the government to step in and say, only you with your power have the ability to help or prevent or stop or whatever it going too far, and how do you keep them from doing that? Is that a fair question?
I think it is.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, we have a 1 minute break. We'll be right back. And we're almost out of time. So this has been a great discussion. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. Okay, before we get to Emmett's call, I brought up the topic about government. So Beth, I know that was a very broad question. So at what point do you think that government plays a role in what we've been talking about today?
Well, one of the ways that I see it, and one of the ways that in the 1980s that a group of feminists tried to legislate around this was in showing that, in particular, pornography led to violence against women. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at that issue, and that didn't work in terms of it, but that's one of the places that I see a larger issue is we have laws about consent. We have child labor laws. We have things like that. And so there's where I'm going to start leaning into that regulation argument of if we have those things.
So these things are already extant, right?
Yeah,
so.
we have consent laws. We have laws against domestic violence. We have laws against rape and sexual assault. And so how is there a connection here that can be made?
And for those barely 18 girls you were talking about, we have false advertising laws as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, going the other way of, I mean, I'm on the radio, so you can't tell. I'm 5'11". I've been 5'11" since I was 13 years old. Can
you dunk?
I was such a failure to my Class C high school basketball team here in Montana. That was such a disappointment to them.
All right. Now, Swaza, you're about to say something. Right.
Yeah, about government. Even the most libertarian Montanan is going to accept that we put laws when it comes to harm to others, right? Now, the gray areas come for harm to harm to self and offense to others, right? So we all agree that a guy who goes naked in the bus, that's not acceptable, and starts playing with his genitals. So we have a kind of a consensus in the entire society. It's an offense. He's not harming anybody, but he's offending. So we tend to agree with that. But then it's a gray area. No, how much offense, how much boobs, no boobs, nipples, no nipples, I don't know, right? So there will be some differences between Europe and the US for nipples, for example, right? We don't care about nipples. You do. But for the harm to others, I think there is a clear, even the most libertarian of the libertarians are going to accept that when there is harm to others, then that's where the government comes in.
Okay. All right. Let's get to the phone. Emmett, thanks for holding. You're on. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. It's a fascinating discussion, yeah. I've missed some of it because I was asleep, but yeah, I got up a half hour ago. It's been wonderful. And here's what I've always said. Dr. James Dobson did an excellent tape series in the 80s talking about violence against women and this kind of thing, a winnable war, a war against pornography. I personally think that it should be made illegal. Because just like what we've been talking about, it objectifies women and men, and it breeds violence and contempt for women. This isn't just a Christian fundamentalist issue.
No, hold, Emmett.
Public health and safety issue. I do think it should be outlawed.
Hold on, Emmett. Hang on. Whoa. How do you justify that, along with what Hugh Hefner said about his magazine when it was first established back in the 50s? It was because he worshipped the female form. So what's the difference there?
Well, I don't think he worships the female form. It got the ball rolling to this objectifying women and then violence because, a lot like Dr. James Dobson in a tape series I have somewhere said, a lot of this isn't mom and pop, little, nude girls all the time. And, a lot of it is hardcore XXX violence against women, degrading just stuff I can't say on the air. But I was shocked. It was around 1987 when he put out the tape series. So it's gone from Hugh Hefner to this absolute, the XXX videos, just horrible stuff against women, mutilation and this kind of thing.
So if I hear you correctly, I hear you saying it should all be outlawed, right?
Yeah, I'm not talking about nude art of women. There's always going to be art in, in the art, galleries of naked women.
Where do you draw the line between art and pornography?
Exactly. Pornography is the objectifying of the sex. I can't go into graphic detail, but like I said, you know it when you see it.
Okay.
And with the violence against women, I really think that there should be a winnable war against this hardcore pornography.
All right. Emmett, thanks for the call, man. I hate to do this, too. We're almost out of time, but thank you for calling. Now, we have exactly 2 minutes left in the show. So If you guys wanted to wrap up just about our discussion, and have we solved anything here, or have we just kind of opened the window a little bit, or
we
what?
have solved something. We have clearly distinguished some issues, and we have clearly distinguished some solutions that are not ideal, but at least that make us understand a few issues. There is one issue, one side which says, which Emmett was talking about, objectification, demeaning, wrong message about sexuality and women, and that's a problem. There is another side which says freedom of choice, that's your own body. There is an agreement on non-consenting is not okay. And I think that everybody can agree on that. And then there are some gray area between that freedom of choice and that demeaning aspect and wrong message. And that's, if we have that map, I think that we've made progress because we understand the issue better.
Go ahead, John.
One thing that I think we should have brought into the conversation but didn't is sexuality is procreation in many events, right? And there is the opportunity for a third non-consenting person to be involved in a sexual act. That generated person that could be formed in the woman's belly. And I think that lots of these rules and the reason we have stigmas about it is because of procreation, yet our generation seems to have eschewed that as part of sexuality.
Well, and so when I think about that...
1 minute.
1 minute.
Yeah.
So I can talk fast. So
Okay.
one of the things in terms of how that works within this industry is it has kind of separated sexuality from intimacy and love and romance and things like that. And so I think that is absolutely an issue. I also think that use of condoms, use of birth control methods within these industries needs to be out there to show people that those things are happening and that protections need to be in place for the women and men working in those places so that there aren't pregnancies, so that there aren't STDs being spread. California did it, which didn't work out.
They all
right.
moved to
Nevada.
Then they'll move to Mexico. Then they'll move somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, we are out of time. Thank you so much for
Thank you for
coming.
having us.
Thank
guys.
you for having us.
Boldly going where
nobody else seems to want to go.
Lots of guys actually have gone before, sadly.
All right, what's coming up on tomorrow's fabulous program, John?
I'm going to have open phones, I think. I may be able to get a political debate. We'll see.
Okay, so you guys have a great day and enjoy this beautiful sunshine. We'll see you tomorrow.